Hi, everybody. I hope your summer's going well. I see that we have about 7 attendees. We have 7 panelists and 7 attendees. We may see other people join as time passes. It's about 2 minutes after 2, but let's go ahead and get started. We have a few people with us today. We have Jennifer, Brandi, Cheryl, Kyle, Patty, and Kennedy. And Kennedy is joining us from her car. So she's not on the video, but I'm just so impressed that she decided to join us anyway. So we'll go ahead and get started. So I'm going to give you my regular summary. Then Brandi's going to talk about closing out your 2021 funding year and moving on to 2022. And then Kyle is going to talk about things like reminders and July action items. If you have any questions during the webinar, go ahead and you can ask them in the questions and answers box, or you can put them in the chat. We can also let you ask them out loud if you really want to talk. So just let us know, and we'll be happy to answer the questions as we go along. And we'll go ahead and get started. So 87% of LCT Category 1 dollars have been funded for 2022 already, and we haven't even gotten to July 1st yet. That's really exciting because that means that that hopefully we'll see most of the funding in place when the funding year starts. And the funding year goes from July 1st through June 30th. $7.1 million in Category 1 pre-discount funding has been awarded to LCT libraries since 2018. And currently, well, at least on applications, the average bandwidth among LCT libraries for 2022 is 1 gigabit per second, which is really exciting because there's a large percentage of libraries who serve small populations, and the original purpose of this program was to have a goal of 100 megabits per second for libraries that serve a population of fewer than 50,000 patrons, and a gig for the larger libraries. So that means that even the smaller libraries are averaging, close to the same as the bigger libraries. $8.4 million in C1 has been requested for LCT libraries since 2018, and that's counting Category 2. I didn't separate out the Category 1. Maybe next time I will do that. I'm sorry about that. I kind of threw that one in there last minute. The average cost per megabit is $2.65 per megabit, and that's gone down $1.13 per meg since last year. So that means costs for internet have gone down for LCT participants. And the average monthly cost for LCT libraries is $842.28. An average just means that, there's some that are paying more, there's some that are paying less, but, among all of the participants, that's about the average. And that is not just internet access costs. That includes libraries that filed for WAN services as well. I'm going to, in July, try to break out those stats and kind of give you a little bit more granular information about that. But I just want to congratulate the LCT libraries, because just participating in this program, that means internet access has grown for you in bandwidth and gone down in costs. And if that hasn't happened for you, you should reach out to us and let us make sure that that happens for you next year, because it's happening across the board for most of the participants. Okay, so I'm done with my part. We're going to move on to Brandi, and she's going to talk about closing out funding year 2021 and moving into funding year 2022. Brandi?
Thanks, Caroline. So funding year 2021 is coming to an end. That was the funding year that began July 1st, 2021, and it will end June 30th of 2022. Caroline, if you could go to the next slide, please. So again, ends June 30th of 2022. The big piece to remember is that you want to make sure that your old services are ending, but not before you ensure your new services are set up to begin July 1st, because you don't want to end your internet access and not have internet access effective July 1st with your new provider. You'll also want to find out if there's any kind of delays in switching your service, because if you end up with a few months with your old provider, we will need to take action to notify USAC, and that's done with a spin split. So be sure to stay in communication with your LCT contact if that is happening. If you are switching service providers, again, I know I sound like a broken record, but don't turn it off until your new services have been turned up. And hopefully we talked about in our last LCT webinar about giving notice to your provider. It states in your contract how much notice is to be given, and you'll want to make sure that you've done that, notified them that you're switching to a new provider. If you are upgrading your bandwidth, you'll want to make sure that's taken place too. So keeping an eye on your first invoice for the month of July to make sure that if you increase the bandwidth, that it reflects on the invoice as well. The fun part is getting your money back from USAC. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like. You'll want to make sure that you have all of your bills and proof of payment for the funding year. And that could mean that you have to reach out to your city office or county office if they keep track of the billing for you, getting copies of the bills and proof of payment, reviewing them, and then reconciling them. We actually have a template that can be utilized for reconciling your invoices and comparing that to what was actually committed from USAC. And we can send that out to you. If the amounts match, so if the amount that you come up with once you've reconciled the invoices and the amount that was funded from USAC match, then that's the amount that you will include on your bear for reimbursement. However, if they don't match, for instance, if the amount that you actually paid out to your service provider is more than what USAC funded, you will only be able to request reimbursement for the amount funded, nothing over that. So the invoicing deadline for 2021 is October 28th of 2022. In some instances, you may not have received your last invoice for the funding year, so you'll want to wait for that to do your reconciliation, but you still have a few months to get that in order and to file your bears. If for some reason you're not able to file by the deadline, you can request an extension, and it is an automatic extension. However, we want you to get your money. So whatever we need to do to be able to help you do that, if you have any questions about the reconciliation, if you want us to review the reconciliation before you create your bear, anything like that, we're happy to do. But we want you to go ahead and get your reimbursement from USAC. Those are going to come through an electronic funds transfer. You should have a Form 498 on file. If you filed a bear in the past, you will have that completed. But another step is to ensure that the information on your 498 is accurate. So if you've had a bank change, a bank account number change, anything like that, you will want to modify your Form 498 to update that information. And you'll want to do that with plenty of time remaining to file your bear. So if you fit into that category, reach out to LCT and we can actually talk you through that process to get that modified before you submit the request. So here in just 7 days, our new funding year begins. So July 1st, 2022. And we're going to say this one more time. If you are upgrading your service or you have a new service provider, double check that services are going to turn up July 1st or that your bandwidth is expected to increase July 1st. And then canceling the outgoing service once you've confirmed that that is correct. A lot of you, like Caroline said, have received your FCDL, and we have sent out communication regarding the Form 486 with instructions on creating and certifying the form. You have likely, if you've received an FCDL, you've seen that email come through as well. If you have any questions about that or you need assistance with filing your 486, please reach out so that somebody can assist you with it. It's a really easy form, and it needs to be done sooner rather than later. So please get that taken care of as soon as possible. And again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to LCT. And now Kyle is going to talk about reminders and July action items.
Thank you, Brandi. I appreciate it. Firstly, let's discuss the Form 486. So as Brandi has been discussing, services for funding year 2022 should be starting July 1st, 2022 at the earliest. And assuming that they are starting on July 1st, 2022, the Form 486 is going to notify USAC, the Universal Service Administrative Company, that services are starting on July 1st, 2022, or on a later date if they happen to be starting at a later date. This is a form that is also going to certify the library's compliance with the Children's Internet Protection Act. The deadline for the Form 486 to file it is October 29th, 2022. If you have already received your FCDL, or if you will receive it by July 1st. Otherwise, the deadline is going to be 120 days following the receipt of your FCDL if you receive it after July 1st. Again, typically best to, once you receive the FCDL, make sure that you know what the service start date is and make sure that the library is SEPA compliant, and then proceed with certifying the Form 486 as soon as you have completed those steps. And again, there are some cases in which services do not start on July 1st. Please check with the LCT team for guidance if you think you are in that situation. On the next slide, I believe we're discussing the difference between the bearer and SPI invoicing. If you want a discounted bill, you will need to complete the form and submit it to the provider. If you do not need a discount on your bill, you do not have to submit the form. And that is for SPI invoicing in particular.
Just to add something there, in some cases, your service provider doesn't send you a form, but some service providers, and I will say AT&T is one of them, and I believe that Spectrum is another, will send you a form for you to complete to elect whether you're going to be wanting SPI billing or you're going to want bear billing. And bear billing means that you're going to get the bill in full and then you're going to file a bear. If you are going to file a bear, then it's not necessary for you to fill out the form. If you want a SPI, if you want them to discount the bill and you want SPI billing, it is imperative that you fill out the form. Some service providers have a cutoff date for you to fill out that form. So, do complete it as soon as possible after receiving it. Sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to throw that in there.
Those are all really good notes, Caroline, and there have been some libraries who can sometimes run into issues if they don't complete that specific form. So it is very crucial, as Caroline says, to make sure that you are communicating with your service provider and have that form filled out and submitted to the right person there. And then that brings us now to the funding year 2023 items to consider here. The time to file a new Form 470 for the next E-rate year, funding year 2023. It's fast approaching. The funding year 2023 is the period between July 1st, 2023 and, yes, July 1st, 2023 and June 30th, 2024. So if you have an internet contract that is ending on June 30th, 2023, you will need to file a new Form 470 for internet service that follows that current contract. Same thing if you have an internet contract that is ending mid-year prior to June 30th, 2024. You will need to make sure that you file a Form 470 for internet services that follow the end of that contract. As we approach the filing window for funding year 2023 as well, please consider any Category 2 needs that the library may have. This includes networking equipment, basic maintenance services, potentially, as well as managed internal broadband services. If you have any questions about Category 2 services, please reach out to the LCT team and we can discuss a quote for separate Category 2 services for the library. And I believe that is it for the reminders. As always, please contact us at our email, lct@eratecentral.com. Our phone number is 516-801-7820. That is our hotline, so that should be coming to at least one of us, and we should be able to answer your call, or if you leave a message, we can get back to you in a timely manner. Our next webinar is going to be at 2 p.m. Central Time, same time as always, on Thursday, July 28th, 2022, 1 month from now. Additionally, here are some online resources that you can reference for training purposes, SEPA compliance information. And again, if you have any questions about these resources, please reach out to us.
Thank you, Kyle. We have a question, and it is about the Form 470, and I'll answer it. So Shannon wants to know when the 470 for 2023 is due. That's a really good question. I'm not going to say when it's due because it's not due on a specific date. It's due 28 days before the window closes. Now, we don't recommend that you wait till then. We generally recommend that you start now thinking about what you're going to need for next year. If you need bandwidth that is not on your current contract, even if you do have a current contract and it's not something that you procured using a Form 470, you may need to file a Form 470, so do think about that. And Shannon, I'll address your second question too, because that's another good question. So the answer about the Form 470 is do it as soon as you can. We recommend it probably in the fall. We say do it by Thanksgiving. That will give you plenty enough time to get all of your procurement done without worrying too much and being too stressed out. What happens when people wait till the very end is then there's a lot of stress in trying to get contracts signed and things like that. So our suggestion is that you try to get that done in July, and we're going to have some surprises on the next LCT webinar, so stay tuned. The other question was about USAC information in the old librarian's name. Do reach out to us using that lct@eratecentral.com email, or you can call us at 516-801-7820. We'll help you get that information changed. If the email address is different than the email address that was previously used by the librarian, then it's a little bit more complicated. If it's the same email address, it should be really easy. So the question, I know it's not an exact answer, but that's the answer. Some other things that I want to remind you about, if you do have a new service provider and you are leaving your old service provider, or if you're changing the kind of services that you had, say for instance, you used to have a cable modem, but now you're going to have fiber. Sometimes that requires a cutoff of the old service, and that usually is submitted in writing. It's not just a phone call to your rep. So I recommend that you find out if that is the kind of service that you're transitioning to. If you don't know, reach out to us and we'll help you figure it out. But let's address it now before July 1st, so that it can. We want you to use all of the funding. We want at the end of the year to whatever you requested. We want that to match whatever you were billed and paid for. We don't want you to have any money left over, because we want you to get all of the money that you requested and that you were funded. So do act now. Are there any other questions? Okay, well, if there are none, we will let you have the rest of your day. As always, we're going to put this recording on our YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is linked in our newsletter. You're welcome, Shannon. We're looking forward to working with you to get all of your information switched over. Thanks a lot, and have a great rest of the week, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.